on Wednesday on YouTube. We're joined by our producer, Brennan, who made really great graphics. I mean, first of all, he does them every week, but every week we're building. We're like Julian Sands as a quarterback. Every week we give you a little bit more. We go, you know what? I thought we could handle that. And here we are. The game week. So we have to all be on our A's and our P's and Q's. We're previewing the Ohio State-Michigan game, but we're doing it in an interesting way. We're going to start with, obviously, a big-picture conversation, and then we'll transition into, as you can see, as Brennan did, we have what ESPN used to have. We are the new ESPN. We are the BTSN, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Where we're talking Ryan Day and Sharon Moore, who actually has more pressure in this game, and then we'll get into, obviously, some X's and O's, some Michigan strengths, some Michigan weaknesses, some places that Michigan can maybe attack Ohio State. Some places Ohio State can maybe attack Michigan. And then I have an award called the Chris Olave Award. You guys are Ohio State football fans, so you know what that means. This is about a guy that maybe uses this game to become a legend. So like guys like Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate can't be necessarily up for this award. These are guys who aren't necessarily established people that we think could use this stage, as Ryan Day said. People become a legend in this game. And it's going to be interesting to see who we have at that list. Though I think I know who Stefan's is because he kind of hinted at it when we were doing some videos on the indoor. So maybe I'll make him go last, which actually isn't a thing because Brendan already put the graphics in, so he actually gets to go first. So it kind of is what it is at this point. But let's start with the big picture stuff, Stefan. This is an idea that I had, and then you kind of like were walking down this line on the Monday pod of this idea of who actually – has more pressure and who actually needs to win this game more between Ryan Day, who is 1-4 in this game, and Sharon Moore, who was officially 1-0 in this game. I don't know if he technically gets the win in 2023 since he was on the sideline. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe
I think so.
He does.
In the same way that Day was 3-0 in 2018.
Okay.
But Stephen, if I'm not mistaken, the games that Day was interim coach for, it wasn't for the Michigan game, was it?
No. Those are at the beginning of the season. Urban Meyer was back.
Okay, yeah, because I saw someone on our Buckeye Talk Instagram commented and was like, Ryan Day is actually 2-4, like was kind of coming at Brendan, and I was like, no, I'm standing up for Brendan. That interim coach win did not count as it was not in a Michigan game, so standing up for Brendan.
I think they're more speaking about the 2020 game where, again, that's the game where Ryan Day was saying he was going to hang 100. It wasn't about what they were going to do in the years after that. And he probably would have 2 wins over Michigan, given the way Michigan season played out in 2020 and the way Ohio State season played out in 2020. But unfortunately, that game didn't happen. So Sharon Moore, 2-0 in this game, 1-0 as the official head coach. I don't know why we give them the interim record. I think they should just go be Phantom. It just shouldn't exist.
Someone's got to do it.
It might as well be the guy that the boss put in charge for a couple days. But yeah, I pick up where you left off on Monday. Who needs this more when you look at where these programs are today? The fact that I understand Ryan Day is 1-4 in this rivalry, and Sharon Moore is 2-0 in this rivalry, but Sharon Moore also is 16-7 overall, and is in a situation where a win here not only gets Michigan to the Big Ten championship game, probably means they make the college football playoff, while Ryan Day, despite his Michigan record, is still one of 3 coaches who are active who have national championships.
Yeah, I posted on Twitter right before we got on here telling people to join our live because I think I'm going to make the case for Sharon having more pressure on him, but I'm not sure if that's the case I'm going to make, or I don't know. I have not decided. So I'm going to decide in real time as we have this conversation here. I think it's fascinating because, someone had said in our chat, let me find the comment here, from Chris saying, I love Steven's mind games, but no way the other guy has more pressure on him than Ryan Day. Yeah, Chris, I think I agree with you. I think this is mind games by Steven. I think when he posed the question, I thought this was mind games. But I think it's more of a conversation than you think. And it's because Ryan Day just won a national championship. Right. And I think that's where this all starts is Ryan Day has stepped in as Ohio State's coach, and he's kept the program where it was, and to some points accelerated when you look at the consistency and now winning the national championship. Obviously, the Michigan rivalry has taken a step back, but in its totality, Ohio State is in a supreme spot where it's competing for national titles year in and year out. and is just coming off a national title. Sharon Moore, I don't know if you can make that same argument right now, because I think I might have alluded to this on Monday. The born on third base thing is funny because Sharon stepped in to a situation that was also very ideal, right? Like Jim Harbaugh put that program in a really good spot, and Sharon's the one who stepped in and now has to continue to keep it going in the same way that Day stepped in after Urban Meyer left. Day has kept the program in a good spot. Michigan won 7 regular season games last year, went 7-5. And this year, if they lose on Saturday, they will also not make the 12-team college football playoff. Missing out on the 12-team playoff is not the standard that Jim Harbaugh created at Michigan, right? So in terms of the national competitive level, right, where they stand on the national stage, Michigan has taken a step back in Sharon's time. Now, he is only in his second year, right? Like, I'm not saying they need to fire him now. There's, he's a first-time head coach. There's some building and some road bumps or speed bumps that come along the road. But the program's not where it was a couple of years ago, where it was making, runs for a national title, let alone, making a 12-team playoff, right? Like under Jim Harbaugh, at least the last couple or 2 or 3 years, Michigan's a lock to make a 12-team playoff, right? That's not even a debate. So the program has taken a step back nationally with Sharon Moore. And then you add on top of that he has kept the Michigan rival or the rivalry going. So that's the thing he has, right? Like he's kept the rivalry going. If he doesn't have that, then what has Sharon Moore done in his time at Michigan? What has he done to keep fans happy? They're not competing for national titles, and now they're not beating Ohio State either. What is the temperature of his seat? As Ed says in our chat here, like they want to fire Sharon. Yeah, there's a lot of people in Michigan circles that have, raised questions about Sharon and not been happy about Sharon. And
I think we lost him.
I think we lost Stefan. Well, he was making a very good point. Hopefully he can come back in at some point. Well, in the meantime, Gillis, I don't know, like, what is this really overcomplicated? Is there really more to this other than it's the guy who has 4 straight losses in this game?
Yeah, I kept going back and forth because like that feels like the simple answer. That feels like the answer of, hey, he's lost 4 in a row. He's got to win this. He's got to take care of it. All right. You kind of get it, right? Like it makes a lot of sense to just say the guy who hasn't won the game since 2019 probably needs to win this game more.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm good with that argument. But the more that I thought about it, like Ryan Day, if we are sitting at the big house or our hotel or wherever we're doing our end of game show on Saturday, and it's 6:00 and Ryan Day and Ohio State lost again, and it's a 5th straight loss again. And if it's just another one of those games where, man, Michigan played the way they wanted to, blah, 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 we still probably are going to say Ohio State can win a national championship because they just did it. Like we still can think that. And then you start to go, if Michigan wins this game, I don't know if I'm going to feel differently about their national championship hopes because they beat Ohio State. Now, granted, they would have the best win in college football. They would have the best win of anybody this year. They would have beaten the number 1 team in college football. And I know Ohio State did that technically with Texas, but I think we can be adults and say that the Michigan win over Ohio State would be better than Ohio State's win over Texas at that point, even if it was at home. So it's like, if Sharon can't beat Ohio State, if Ohio State, like, if Sharon can't get that done, you could make the case of, hey, you have a 7-5 season where you beat Alabama in a bowl game and hip hip hooray, and you bounce back in 2024, and now you're 9-3, and even if you lose to Michigan, you're on the right track. Well, I don't know. It's Michigan, and they just won a national championship 2 years ago. They probably want to get back on that track a little bit quicker, especially considering you've got the number one overall prospect in the sport at quarterback who's a freshman. They probably want to take advantage of that. So this was really hard for me. I still kind of lean Ryan Day. I still kind of lean the guy who hasn't done this in 5 years, 6 years, but it is close. I don't think it's as simple as just I one guy hasn't won it, it's got to be him, or hey, one guy's superpower in essence is kind of doing this. It's got to be him. I really think it's a close battle, and like frankly, it's one of those it's one of those things where it's a boring answer, but I think you could make a case for both guys and have good points.
Well, that's what we're here to do. We're here to make cases. Stefan, I'm sure that your point was wonderful. I wish we could have heard the end of it. People in our chat are saying the point was so good that Connor Stallion somehow kicked you out of the live, which I think is hilarious. Is this a gaslighting question to go, hey, man, I know this guy hasn't won this game since the turn of the decade, and the other guy is literally 2-0. In one of those wins, he was a 21-point underdog. But I don't know, man. There might be more pressure on him. Is this gaslighting to ask this question?
I don't know. I don't think so. The point I made right when I disconnected kind of referred to, what I had mentioned on Monday with the student papers, right? In the Michigan Daily writing about, there being some pressure on Sharon Moore. I think that's real, right? Like he has, this is the thing that he's had in his corner, even as he's, tried to get back to national championship, competitive level. The thing that he's had in his corner is that he beat Ohio State last year, right? That was the saving grace of a 8-5, 7-5 season last year, right? And I think that's something that he needs to keep in his corner to kind of keep the pressure off. Otherwise, they're 9-3 this year. They're not in the 12-team college football playoff, right? 12 teams get in, and Michigan's not one of them. That's not acceptable. So yeah, I think there's real pressure. The question at its level, at surface level, sounds idiotic, but if Ryan Day loses this, Ohio State can win back-to-back national titles. So there's certainly pressure on Ryan Day, but I think when you look at Sharon Moore, like if he loses his game, I think I'm not saying they're going to fire him, but there's going to be a lot of people at Michigan who are scratching their heads saying, this isn't Jim Harbaugh. Can we do something about that?
2026 becomes very important for Sharon Moore if Michigan can't win this game. If Ohio State goes to Ann Arbor, breaks a streak, all of a sudden now, you're looking at next year, you would have to go on the road to the shoe, and you've got a coach who went 7-5 and then 9-3. And we could talk about how we're going to soon about how young Michigan is and the different areas in which they're inexperienced in this and blah, blah, blah. 2026 becomes very, very, very important for him.
So earlier this week, I put out a survey to our texters, 614-350-3315. And one of the questions I had on it, it's a 2-week free trial. So it's $3.99 after that. So $4 a month after 2 weeks for free. Come check us out. And one of the questions I asked was, how many national titles will Ryan Day have to win for his record against Michigan to stop mattering so much? Because the reason why this is even a question is because he won a national championship last year while also losing to Michigan. And so that idea of what happens if those two things happen in the same season is no longer just some, hypothetical. It's a real thing that exists. And I think what you're seeing is by this, the concept of this question is, which one matters to you more? They both matter, but which one is maybe a little bit more important now that you've felt it, right? You've had plenty of years in your life where Ohio State's beaten Michigan, but they haven't won a national title. Last year was the first time Ohio State didn't beat Michigan, but also won a national title. And the options I gave them were nothing trumps a bad record against Michigan, 1 more, 2 more, 3 more, and then 4+ more. 32% said 2 more. That was the highest one. 21% either said nothing trumps a bad Michigan record or 1 more. And I'm not going to throw a bunch of numbers at you, but I think Day having Ohio State in a world where every year they could be the last team standing doesn't devalue the rivalry, but it does take some of the outside pressure off of it. And maybe he can approach it a little bit differently. What else does Sharon Moore have? And I think that's where, to both of your guys' point, the pressure might start coming in. Is if Michigan's the fourth best team in the Big Ten this year? If they're constantly the fourth best team in the Big Ten, constantly a bubble playoff team, but it's like, hey, maybe we beat Ohio State, maybe we don't. I think that era of, the hypothetical, like you can go 0-11, but if you win the last one, it's a good season. Like that, even that whole concept doesn't really exist anymore. Because it's like, yeah, you beat Ohio State. Now your season is over. Now what? And I just keep hearing Jack Sawyer yelling at Mason Graham, your season is over. And it's like, yeah, he's right. Mason Graham was also right because he won that game. And so he won that day. But Jack Sawyer wasn't wrong in saying, hey, Michigan, this sucks. But also we can go out there and get something else. If Michigan's reward every year is this is the pinnacle of their season, I'm wondering how many years Ryan Day can ease the Michigan loss. What else is Sharon Moore adding to an Ohio State win?
And that's the thing. And if he doesn't have the Ohio State win, then what's he got in his back pocket?
Right.
And that's where I think this conversation kind of stems from. Is like that's real pressure, right? Like Ryan Day got through the heat, the biggest, heat boiling point you can have when it comes to pressure in this rivalry. He got out of it. He came out the other side. If Sharon doesn't have that, what does his come out the other side of it? What does Sharon, when he goes to talk to boosters and donors at Michigan, say, right? The thing that he had last year was, oh, we had a bad team. It was a rebuilding year. We still beat Ohio State. We still beat Bama. And we got Bryce Underwood and everything's rolling. Okay, we just helped you pay for Bryce Underwood and you got us a trip to the ReliaQuest Bowl and no win against Ohio State. Why should I keep invested in this? Why shouldn't I go look for another coach? I think there's real pressure. But every time I have this conversation with myself preparing for this podcast, I keep saying, well, Ryan Day lost 4 straight against Michigan. So it's like, I don't know. There's still a lot of pressure on it.
Yeah.
It's why this is an interesting year to do this.
Yeah.
Because if Day loses again, I think we're all just going to be living in a world where it's like, well, this is his thing. He's flawed. He's John Cooper if John Cooper had an expanded playoff. And whether you like it or not, unfortunately, this is what you're going to have to live with. This dude might win 4 rings. He also might have like 7 Michigan losses. And can you live with that? Can you live with it or can you not live with it? Because either way, it's going to be in your life. While with Sharon Moore, it's like right now, Saturday is everything to Sharon Moore in Michigan. Right? Their entire season is on the line on Saturday. This is a very, very, very important thing for Ohio State and Ryan Day on Saturday. Because there's also still a world that exists where they lose this game and somehow get right back on the field with them the following week. Granted, Indiana will have played Purdue on Friday, and they're probably going to wipe the floor with them. So that's a very slim margin. But it's the difference between this is very important to me versus this is the only thing I have.
So, out of curiosity for both of you guys, let's pretend I have the ability to change one football game and I decide that I want Michigan to beat USC a couple of weeks ago. And Michigan's rolling in here 10-1, and you're sitting there going, Michigan's a playoff team either way. Do we feel that there's as good of an argument for Sharon if this was like a lock playoff team? Hey, it's just a Big Ten championship game, but the loser's still going to be in the playoff.
No, because then there's no pressure. Like Michigan's going to make the playoff. Ohio State's going to make the playoff. And so now it just comes back to which one of these guys hasn't won this thing in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I
think
agree with that.
it's gonna be interesting in the world. If there's a year where we know both these teams are making the playoff, then we can kind of start going into those hypotheticals of like, okay, you lost a regular season game, but you can play this team again,
Yeah.
right? And that's the consolation. And even if they don't play again, at least Sharon's going into the offseason telling donors and fans and his athletic director, hey, I got this team back to the college football playoff. We had a rebuilding year, and now we're back in the playoff. Yes, we lost to Ohio State, but again, it's like there's two things you can present to me: playoff and national championship or national championship level play, or beating Ohio State. And if you can present one, then I can live with maybe not getting the other. If you can't present either, then there's trouble. And if you present both, obviously you're in a really good spot. But that's the thing. It's like if you take away the Ohio State success from Sharon Moore, but he's presenting to you playoff bids and things of that nature, then I think you can at least kind of say, okay, Coach Moore has this going in the right direction, blah, blah, blah. Whereas if you have neither, then that's where the pressure this week exists.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting kind of look at where fans' heads are at. Like we have two back-to-back chats of Stefan brings the point to the current status of college football. If we lose Saturday, it isn't as significant as it was 10 years ago. We can still and most likely will be the favorites to repeat. And that's 100% true. Like if Ohio State loses to Michigan, I do not think that we're going to be sitting there unless there's something injury wise, I guess maybe. And we're going to say, man, I don't think this team can do it. Like we thought that last year, and then they did the thing. They won the national championship. And then the next chat is beating Michigan is always the most important job of any Ohio State coach. And it's an interesting look here because now that we are kind of in this world of like a loss to Michigan doesn't end things, because I think there was that worry with the 4-team playoff, right? And it almost was true in 22 where Ohio State, they did kind of backdoor into the playoff because USC lost. But like 23, the game meant everything. And the game meant, hey, the losers out and the winners going to the Big Ten championship game. And they're going to kill Iowa and they're going to go to the playoff. So it's an interesting kind of look here because it's frankly, I think it's about what you value. And I think you kind of have to move the goalposts. And if you're Sharon, like you were saying, Stefan, you kind of have to move those goalposts of, hey, we can beat Ohio State, we could do this. But if you don't have that, you have to spin it in another way. And I don't know if that's pressure. It's an interesting kind of look at how you want to view this game now.
And I think if it's moving goalposts rather than just setting your standard. Like, what do you want your program to be? That's what every college football program around the country is having to do right now. It's why James Franklin's no longer at Penn State. It's why Brian Kelly's no longer at LSU, right? It's not why Billy Napier is no longer at Florida. I think expanding the playoff means more teams realistically have a chance at winning a national title. Because once you get in the field, you're just playing football. And anything can happen in a football game. Who knows that better than Ohio State fans with some of the football games they've been involved in over the past 7 years, right? But if we live in this world now where you can have tangible evaluations on what a guy is doing, then I just think it's setting your standard. Is Michigan okay with we're beating Ohio State? That's all we need to do. Everything else is gravy. Or did they win a national championship in 2023? Even if listen, like we this is an Ohio State football podcast. We know that Connor Stallions exist, but the point is, like from their side of things, they won a national championship going 15-0, and they had a bunch of NFL draft picks. Is that your standard now that there's better opportunity to do it because there's 12 teams and not just 4? And if that's your standard, then like just beating Ohio State, and that sounds like I'm devaluing the rivalry. I'm not, but there's something after this game. In a way, there hasn't always been something after this game. So if Michigan is cool with we're a borderline playoff team and we beat our rival, then this is not a conversation. But something tells me they're not going to just be cool with we're a borderline playoff team and we beat our rival in a world where there's more to be had. And Indiana is arguably the second best team in the Big Ten right now. And Oregon is the third best team in the Big Ten right now. That's the world Michigan wants to live in, where a team who just got here 12 months ago and a team who is historically one of the worst, a team who until like 3 weeks ago was historically the worst college football program in the history of college football. Sorry, Stefan.
That's true.
And a team who just got here 12 months ago are better than you. I don't think that's the world Michigan wants to live in. And losing this game on Saturday sends you down that road.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I wanted to, one of our viewers made the point in the comments, just, it does sound funny to say Sharon is 9-2 and 7-1 in the Big Ten with a freshman quarterback. And we're talking like his job is on the line. I'm not saying that Michigan's going to fire him if they lose on Saturday, but I think the pressure just continues to build and build, right? Because again, what are you telling your fans? We didn't make the playoff this year and we didn't beat Ohio State. That it becomes hotter and hotter, right? He's not getting fired this offseason, but if he's losing the rivalry and then next year it's 8-4, like there's pressure then on even more pressure next year to be a playoff team, to win the game against Ohio State. Like it's not about getting fired. It's about the pressure that's going to continue to build and build on him as they kind of go through this. And again, every time I make the case for Sharon Moore having more pressure on Saturday, I remind myself Ryan Day has lost 4 in a row, and maybe this is a stupid question to even be asking.
It's the standard's the standard. And so whatever your standard is, that's what you have to abide by. That's all I'm saying. I think this is going to be an interesting year to see what Michigan standard is if Ohio State does, in fact, win this football game. If they lose this football game, then I mean, hey, man, they're in the playoff. They beat Ohio State. This doesn't really matter. But it's a winning is everything for Michigan in a way that winning is everything culturally still for Ohio State, but it's also the tangible part that exists for Michigan this year. That's not necessarily the case for Ohio State. Andrew in our chat, I just thought this was important to mention because Stefan went viral last week. Can we talk about how Stefan got roasted by Stallions for posting a picture he didn't even take? Which,
I did take the picture. Listen,
yes.
I promise Ohio State fans I was not trying to troll you. I just thought it was a cool picture because it was right outside, right under the rotunda with the X crossed off on a sign, or with the M crossed out on a sign. I didn't realize there was another M in the picture that wasn't crossed out, so it ended up being Michigan fans roasting Ohio State fans. So my apologies for that. I did take the picture, but I'm not the one who crossed out the M's. It seemed that Connor Stallions and his, let's say, posse thought that I was the one going around campus crossing out M's, and I'm the one who forgot to cross one out. So yes, as Andrew put in quotes, roasted by Connor Stallions. Listen, I joined this live and Connor Stallions showed up and cut out my Wi-Fi and dropped me from the live. So he's making it a clear point of what he thinks of my opinions about this rivalry. I'm sure if Michigan loses on Saturday, Connor Stallions probably won't be too thrilled with Sharon Moore.
I think it's impressive to watch that man stretch out his 15 minutes of fame as far as it'll go.
It's wild. It's wild.
Attention is a hell of a drug. Okay, let's move on. Let's start with Michigan first, and things they're good at. Let's start. We're diving into Michigan now. It's the question I asked when I sent this to these guys is which area can Michigan attack Ohio State, and it's just a way to talk about their strengths. Stefan, you first. What are you expecting to see from Michigan? Where are they strong at? Where's Michigan good at?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to start with running the ball, right? I mean, regardless of who's been at running back for them, they've been a beast running the ball this year. It sounds like Jordan Marshall's going to play on Saturday because it sounded like he was available if necessary against Maryland. Hello, load management. We've been hearing about you a lot this year.
This year,
yeah, that's true. Yeah, we've heard it. We've been listening to it for 2 years. But yeah, it's interesting because whatever strength we talk about with Michigan, like the counter immediately is like, well, that's not a weakness for Ohio State, right? Stopping a run has not necessarily been a weakness for Ohio State. I think Texas is the only team that's run for more than 100 yards against Ohio State this season, right? So there is an element to this where Michigan's strength could fall into Ohio State's strength, but you do what you do and then adjust if it's not working. And Michigan is going to run the ball unless they have to adjust. Michigan is a force run in it. And I'm really curious to see what they do with Bryce Underwood. They have been conservative at times in their usage of Bryce and his mobility, right? And maybe there is a load management element to that, right? You don't want we're just not the Haynes King model of playing quarterback is just not sustainable, right? And I don't think that's and I know you love Haynes King, Steven, but he's lucky to walk out alive by this point of the season when they play some games. And if you're doing that, if you're Michigan, you can have that with Bryce Underwood, but I think you have to unlock it, right? And I think a lot of these runs, you give him the option to pull and take it himself. And I think that's where Michigan is back Ohio State. And I think that's what their strength is running the ball. Marshall's awesome. Marshall's a great running back. And it's scary to think that he's probably their second best running back. Now, obviously, Haynes isn't going to play. So Marshall ends up being their starter. But that's a great team. That's a team that or a great rushing attack, I should say. And that's where they're going to try to attack Ohio State. I would be shocked if Bryce Underwood in a winning formula for Michigan throws more than 25 passes where we set the line maybe. And yes, Melissa in our chat, Haynes is out for sure. He's out for the regular season. If they beat Ohio State and make the playoff, I think there's a chance he could come back. So Marshall's the guy that they're going to rely on with Bryce Underwood there in the backfield. That's where they're going to try to attack Ohio State because that's their strength. And I think you have to lean on that until proven otherwise.
Gillis, what you got? Where are they attacking Ohio State?
Yeah, I have a similar offshoot of that, but it's kind of like an adjacent category. I have wearing down the Buckeyes, and that is a run game, but I have stats for that because we'll get to our game scores later, but there's a lot of people who I think fairly have said, I can't pick Ohio State to win this game until they prove it to me that they can win this game, right? It's one of those kind of conversations. Well, it's hard not to think Michigan won't wear down Ohio State until you see it, because there have been great Ohio State defenses and defensive players in these last handful of years. Obviously, it's gotten better in these 4 years, from 2021 and 2022, specifically 23 and 24. Those defenses were very, very good. But I have some stats. 2021, Michigan scored 14 fourth quarter points, 9 plays, 66 yards, 451, 5 plays, 63 yards, 228, and then a game-ending kneel down. So 2 drives, 14 points. 2022, 15 plays, 81 yards, 751, touchdown. 4 plays, 18 yards, missed field goal. 1 play, 75 yards, touchdown. 3 plays, 92 yards, touchdown, game-ending kneel down. 4 drives that mattered. I'm not counting these game-ending kneel downs. 21 points. 2023, they had 2 drives. They scored 6 points. 7 plays, 44 yards. 13 plays, 56 yards. Those 2 drives totaled 11 minutes. And they got 6 points out of them. 24 last year, 15 plays, 77 yards, 9-10 off the clock. They got all the way down to the goal line, and somebody by the name of Jack Sawyer played hero ball. Next drive, 11 plays, 57 yards, 528. They kick that game-winning field goal. Then they get the game-winning kneel down, 3 points, 2 drives. Meaning, they have had 10 drives in the last 4 years in the fourth quarter that have mattered to the game. Like, I'm not counting the kneel downs. The only ones they have not scored on were a missed field goal where they started in Ohio State territory, and then there was a penalty, I believe. I believe it was a defensive pass interference. They started in Ohio State territory. They missed a field goal, and Jack Sawyer making a pick. But every single one of those drives went more than 40 yards. Every single one of them. Every single one of them that wasn't like a game-breaking, whoa, they just broke one touchdown in the last couple of years was more than 5 minutes. Michigan has worn down Ohio State in the last 4 years. Like, I think that outline pretty well shows that they have. I understand, there's different mitigating circumstances of, the game, they held them to field goal, 6 points, the blah, blah, blah. Ohio State had the ball with a chance to win in 23. I get all that. Michigan has controlled the clock. Last year's game, they had a drive that 5:28 that won the game. They had a drive that bled over 9-10, 11 minutes in 23. They had the breakaway touchdowns in 22 And before that, they had a 15-play, 81-yard drive that went 7:51. In the second half and in the fourth quarter, this team has run down Ohio State. So the run game matters. But if Michigan gets into a game here and Ohio State lets Michigan get into a game here where Michigan's up or it's a tie game and Michigan is able to control the clock, they get the ball and there's 13 minutes and they're at their own 25-yard line and it's 17-17. Maybe it's snowing, maybe it's windy, maybe it's whatever. Michigan's going to feel really, really confident that they're going to be able to run the ball on Ohio State. Why? They have proof of concept. They have had 10 drives in the last 4 years against this team that have bled into the fourth quarter. 2 of them haven't scored. One of them was a missed field goal, and that was the only reason that they didn't score. And the other one was because Davis Warren had a dude wide open, and he underthrew it, and Jack Sawyer undercut the route and took it back like 20 yards. That's where Michigan is stronger than Ohio State. That's where Michigan can attack Ohio State. Yes, by running the ball, but if you get that game to the third and fourth quarter and it's close, Ohio State's going to have to prove something that they simply have not proved in these last 4 years.
I have a couple. We got some time, so I'm going to kind of run through a couple of them here. I think some of them are Ohio State related, and some of them are just strictly Michigan things that they've kind of done all year here. Stefan, you and I have brought this up a couple of times that we did not like what Michigan did with Bryce Underwood against Oklahoma. They gave him way too much for that to be his second start as an 18-year-old in his first game against a Power 4 opponent, and it was on the road. That was too much for him. We've also been very complimentary of the way Ohio State has gone about Julian Sand. And I wrote it earlier this year. This has been the most ideal situation for a guy who's a quarterback developer to develop his quarterback. Everything has been with a purpose. Everything has been methodical. They have not rushed any part of it. In fact, you can maybe argue that sometimes they've gone a little too slow and they could have given him more. But I guess you would rather have that in hindsight than get to the end of the Texas game and feel like, oh, we gave him too much. Because I think Michigan left the Oklahoma game thinking, oh, we gave Bryce Underwood too much. I also think they've learned their lesson since then. Granted, it helped that they played Central Michigan the week after that, so they really let Bryce Underwood loose. He had 235 yards passing and 114 yards rushing. He hasn't been over. He's been over 50 yards rushing one other time this year, and that was the following week against Nebraska, a game they won. I thought the Nebraska game was, for where he was in the year, good progress for him. He was 12 of 22 for 105 yards, and he had 8 carries for 61 yards and a touchdown. He's grown every week. I think they have done a good job post-Oklahoma of just kind of recognizing that Bryce Underwood is very talented and the ceiling is very high. Ryan Day called him dangerous. He's also 18 years old, playing in the Big Ten. So to expect him to come out here and look like Cam Newton in September and October, and maybe even November, that's not a real possibility, because again, Jeremiah Smith is not the bar for how true freshmen are supposed to play football. DeCorian Moore is having a pretty good true freshman year, right? I think we would all say that. He's not sniffing 1,000 yards. Granted, he's also missed some games, but even before that, he wasn't on pace for 1,000 yards. I think Devin Sanchez has had a pretty decent season. He's also had some very bad moments. Right? Bo Jackson, as talented as he is, they did not play him against Texas. Because it's normal. True freshmen are not supposed to be superstars 3 games into their careers. And that's what makes Jeremiah Smith so great. So I think that in itself, I think they've just done a better job of nurturing Bryce Underwood in a way that maybe he might be ready to have his best performance. Because if you look at his last 2 games, and obviously, I mean, they haven't played the best opponents, but neither has Ohio State the last 2 weeks either, right? So Northwestern, he's 21 of 32. That's a career high in passes against a Power 4 opponent for 280 yards. He also threw 2 pad picks, but had 9 carries for 30 yards and a touchdown. And then last week against Maryland, 16 of 23, 69% completion percentage, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns, 8 carries for 20 yards. I think that's what they want to get out of Bryce Underwood this weekend. So I think whatever their game plan is, it's structured around that, where maybe you have a few plays that are just explosive because Andrew Marsh is a pretty decent receiver now. You use him a little bit in the run game, but you if things go Michigan's way, Michigan wins this game, and it's not because Bryce Underwood is the number one reason why they won this game. He's more along for the ride at this point in his career than the guy driving the car. While with Julian Sand, I think we can all wrap our minds around the idea of like he's driving the car in this game. And this has been one 11-game long buildup to get the game 12 where Julian Sand is ready to do this. You guys touched on the run game stuff, so I don't want to harp on that anymore. I think the other thing Michigan has done very, very well that is an underrated thing over the past 3 years is capitalizing on Ohio State's mistakes. CJ Stroud threw 2 picks in 2022. His picks are not the same as the 2 picks that Kyle McCord threw in 2023 and the 2 picks that Will Howard threw in 2024. CJ came at the end of the game when you're pressing. I think one of them was he's like running around and just trying to not get sacked, and then it like bounces off of I think Kate Stover's hands and ends up being a pick. And the other one was kind of similar where he threw something to Emeka Egbuka. His are desperation into the game pick. So that's not they didn't have an impact on the game the same way that Kyle McCord's pick at the beginning of the game that set up Michigan in plus territory, because not only was it a pick, but Will Johnson took that pretty far from where he picked it off from, which set up Michigan in prime territory where it's like, what do you want the defense to do, man? You want them to get a goal line stop? 2 years later, we're like, yes, we want you to get the goal line stop. That's what you do, right? You get goal line stops. But in that moment, it's like you put your defense in a bad position and they couldn't get the stop for you. That's on Kyle McCord. The second pick of that game has some similarities to CJ's where it's like desperation, you got to push the ball down the field. But also, if you convert it, you win the football game. CJ, that game was already out of reach when CJ's throwing up desperation passes, is trying to make something shake. So, and then that's like Donovan Jackson gets beat on the interior, so Kyle McCord can't step into his throw. I think if he steps into his throw, I think there is a play to be made there. But okay, that's 2 interceptions that were in Michigan's favor at a time when Ohio State and the game was still within reach for Ohio State to win it. And then Will Howard's picks last year were awful. And they were worse than I remembered them in real time. Like one of them is just a miscommunication where Emeka goes in and Will Howard, for whatever reason, thinks he's running an out route. And so he just throws it right into the hands of a Michigan defender. And then the other one, and I know Ohio State got the stop off of it, but you're like the 15-yard line or something like that, and you threw a pick. So that's 6 picks in 3 years. 3 of them for sure were like back-breaking. Quite frankly, we can say that those are among the reasons why it cost you the game. Another one that ruined a chance for you to have a comeback in the first place, and then 2 other ones that are just happening in desperation, whatever mode, right? So like CJ's picks are not like the other 4 picks, but Michigan does a good job of taking advantage of when Ohio State makes mistakes, which has partially been their game plan. Is if we just do these things correctly and put ourselves in position, Ohio State's gonna make a mistake, and then we just have to make most of those mistakes. And that's been the thing, Gillis, with the quarterbacks the last 2 years, right? Is that we just kind of figured at some point Kyle McCord was going to make a mistake. We had gotten to a point with Will Howard where he was just going to make the mistake. And I guess this can transition us into the Ohio State starter thing, because this is kind of on the border of that, Brennan. I think this is where Julian Sand is the biggest difference maker between him and the other 2 quarterbacks. Is Julian Sand has just not lived in that world of we're just going to have to live with eventually he's going to make a mistake. Well, and this is the one where I feel like if we're looking for reasons that Michigan can attack Ohio State, this is the one Ohio State has the most control over in terms of how well Michigan does in executing this plan.
Yeah, and I was going to say real quick too, like a strength for Michigan has also been one of our someone in the chat had pointed out that, you know, if Ohio State goes up 2 scores, this Michigan team is not built to come back from something like that. I don't think last year's Michigan team was really either. And honestly, probably the 2023 team too also wasn't necessarily built to come back in games, I don't think. But Michigan's done a good job of forcing Ohio State into mistakes, capitalizing them, and it's come early in the games often, right? Like both Michigan's first touchdown last year, Michigan's first touchdown the year before came off of interceptions that set them up like inside the 10-yard line, and they took advantage of that. Yep. So Michigan has done a good job of not getting behind early, and they've done so by capitalizing on Ohio State's mistakes. And this is where I think the game gets decided. Is what I think is where Ohio State should attack will dictate whether or not Michigan can take advantage of an early mistake, or whether Ohio State kind of goes up big early and Michigan can't really come back from that. And it's Ohio State's passing attack. I don't think this Michigan secondary is very good. And I don't think this Michigan secondary has the luxury of guys like Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant up front to where they can just continually do, a 4-man rush and have a second, because they didn't have Will Johnson in this game last year, but their secondary was in a good spot because they could just do a traditional 4-man rush and not have to worry about being exotic and bringing pressure and putting his secondary in a tough spot. The secondary was kind of able to sit back and say, hey, those guys up front are going to take care of business. You don't have those guys up front, which tells me that maybe they have to be a bit more exotic in what they do in terms of, pressure against Julian Sayin. And that only adds pressure to a bad secondary. If Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate play especially, Ohio State's going to have opportunities in the passing attack to take some big shots and to make some big plays happen. And if they do that, they can build an early lead and make it very difficult for Bryce Underwood in this Michigan offense to have to play, come from behind football. This is why I keep thinking there's no football reason Ohio State loses this game, because Ohio State's strength goes right into Michigan's weakness, right? Ohio State's passing attack goes right into a poor Michigan secondary. And if Ohio State doesn't lean into that, it's either because their game plan got in the way like it did last year, or Julian Sayin's not executing at a level that we've seen him execute all season, right? And that's where it goes into what you're saying, Stephen. Does he make mistakes that are uncharacteristic? Because with McCord, it was obvious that something bad was going to happen in a Michigan game. Will Howard, maybe not as obvious, but we were having conversations throughout the year, specifically at that Penn State game, be like, they won. Will Howard played really well, but he also had 2 mistakes where you're just like, oh, what are you doing? Like, you can't do that. So when it happened against Michigan, you're not shocked that it happened. If Julian does something like that, you'll be pretty surprised, especially when you add into the fact that that is a weakness on Michigan's roster that Ohio State should have no problem exploiting. So again, football reasons, someone had said in the chat, I can't think of a football reason why Ohio State loses this game. This is what you point to. Lean into your strength because it leans right into Michigan's weakness. And if you can't take advantage of that, either Julian Sayin's off his game or the game plan is just horrific again. And this is why I can't wrap my head around Michigan winning, because I can't imagine Ohio State gets in his way so much that against a bad Michigan secondary, their offense can't be humming.
Before we go, Gillis, Sawyer in our chat. OSU just needs to stop at the 21 so that they'll score every time.
No red zone.
Shout out to the red zone. Yeah, shout out to the red zone. Gillis, where can Ohio State attack Michigan?
Throw the ball. It was funny like last year, because the thing that we talked about so much was like the run game and everything like that, and I just they tried to run the ball because they thought that was how you had to win the game and blah blah blah. And I mean, obviously that was not true, but it was not only that, it was that you were running into the teeth of 2 first-round picks, and one of them went 5th. Like it was that the offensive line for Ohio State got obliterated. And like you saw it even in the run game, but you also saw it, I think that last kind of desperation final minute drive was pretty indicative of that, because Ohio State, and this was kind of my point as to why like you needed to at least have the threat of running the ball, and that's kind of why I've harped on that for a while, because Michigan knew that Ohio State had to throw it. Michigan knew that Ohio State was going to throw the ball every single play of that drive, and Michigan's defensive line still teed off on Ohio State. Like Will Howard was still getting harassed to the point where he had nowhere to go but a quick check down to Travion and a quick out route to I think it was to G on one of the plays. Like they were all up in his grill. So that was important. And if the offensive line holds up again, and again, Michigan's got very good edge rushers, and Ryan Day talked about that. And if the offensive line holds up and you throw the ball, like Stefan said, I don't see the football way of a realistic shootout happening going in Michigan's favor. Like if Ohio State does what it does best, I don't think Michigan's going to keep up with that. Steven and Jimmy did a pod on Monday after Jimmy was done with Michigan availabilities. And it basically felt like 45 minutes of Steven being therapist and Jimmy lying down on the couch going, how does that make you feel? And then they would turn around and they would role reverse and Jimmy would say, and then how does that make you feel, Steven? And they're doing this like weird mental gymnastics therapy kind of session conversation of just like, none of this makes any sense, but this is why we're having a conversation. This is why it's fun to talk about. So if Ohio State does that, if Ohio State can throw the ball, put Michigan on its heels, put them in a position where they're chasing, I think Michigan's in deep, 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 deep trouble. Like, I don't know, Stephen, whether it was you or Jimmy. I think it was Jimmy, where if you told Ohio State, you're a magic genie from the future, and you said, hey, Julian's going to have to throw it 45 times, and then you'll have a chance to win the game. What do you think? Ohio State and Ryan Day and Brian Hartline are probably like, all right, cool. We could manage that. That's not out of the ordinary. That's not crazy. If you go to Michigan and you say Bryce Underwood's going to have to throw it 45 times, your first question is probably going to be, is there a way that we can get out of this? Is there a way that we can figure out how to not do that? And I think that's a really good way to put it. So you've got to put them on their heels. I know this is sacrilege to people who, are big proponents of the middle eight, but it's like maybe getting the ball first for Ohio State would be a good thing in this game. You get the ball first, all of a sudden it's 7-0, and maybe you get a stop. Maybe even if you just keep them out of the end zone and it's 7-3, all right, cool. You're nearing the end of the first quarter and you have the ball up by 4. You have the chance to put Michigan in a deep hole. So throw the ball, get it to your weapons, get it to your guys, because then when they're all terrified because Jeremiah just took a 40-yard, post route to the house, or Carnell just went up and made a 25-yard sideline catch, assuming those guys play, if they're worried about that, it makes it a lot easier for Bo Jackson to take a run for 7 yards, and then 2nd and 3 1st and 10 becomes 2nd and 3, and Michigan, they're in trouble because Ohio State can do whatever it wants on 2nd and 3 because they have confidence in their run game and their pass game. Got to put them on their heels.
So, again, I have multiple things. I really dived into this week. To Gillis' point, because I was going to bring that up, last year, Will Howard had 34 dropbacks. He was literally under pressure for half of them. So Michigan did. And they got after him with 4 a lot because they were just kind of sitting back there and sitting in zone, which brings up kind of my second point, but it's more of like an off-brand comment. Wink Martindale blitzes a lot. And then he didn't blitz against Ohio State last year. And I'm wondering if we see a similar thing happen this year where they've been blitzing all year, and then all of a sudden it's like, we can't leave these corners on islands. I don't care that JJ and Carnell might not be at 100%. We can't leave these corners on islands. And so now all of a sudden we've all been, hey, Wink Martindale, blitz machine, always want to blitz. And then we're like, why is he sitting back in cover 4 for the 7th straight snap in a row? What is happening here? Let's cover 6. What are you doing? That's not what you do. Man blitz. Send some cover 3 fire. Why are you just sitting back there? Granted, they don't have the defensive line they had last year, so I don't know if they're going to have the ability to just get after Ohio State with 4 the way they did last year, which takes me to the other side of things about how Ohio State can attack Michigan. Here's how they can attack them defensively, rushing with 4. I don't think, and Matt Patricia's done it all year. He hasn't really blitzed a ton. He sent them timely. Obviously, and Stefan, we talked about that. He sent maybe a couple of more against Rutgers than maybe he had sent the last couple of weeks. He sent a couple against Arch Manning in Texas. He didn't blitz at all against Washington because why would you blitz Damon Williams when all he wants to do is run around anyway? They didn't blitz Drake Lindsey really at all. And that's a dude who really just wants to sit back there. They came after Ethan and Grunkemeyer when the moment called for it. So like obvious 3rd and long situations, they did it. So I think I'm almost anticipating the first 3rd and long. You see Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese coming through the A gap, and let's just see if Bryce Underwood can handle it. But Bryce Underwood is actually better when he's better when he's kept clean than when he's under pressure. But if you can get pressure with 4 on him, his completion percentage drops down to 44%. And then you put him back in the world he was with against Oklahoma, where it's like he's happened to play Superman and he's 18 years old and he shouldn't be having to play Superman. So I think if Caden Curry, Kenyatta Jackson, and Arvell Reese and Edric Houston, especially when they go with that dime look on third down, if they can get after him with 4 and he doesn't have an answer because they only sent 4 and everybody's dropped back in coverage, and I'm sure that Matt Patricia has spent this week game planning for ways to make sure Andrew Marsh doesn't continue on this tirade he's been on since Michigan played Wisconsin. If he doesn't have an immediate answer, he panics because he's 18 years old and he's a true freshman quarterback. And that's what everybody at 18 years old starting at quarterback in this game would do. They would panic because they don't have an immediate answer. And that's how you get Michigan back in that world of it feels like they're making Bryce Underwood do too much.
And
it's because there's no easy answers for him. And now he's having to run around and do his natural instinct thing, which he's 18. He's not necessarily ready to just do the natural instinct thing yet. And so that's the defensive side.
I think it's like an inverse defensive conversation for both these guys. I think for Michigan, they are probably looking at it going, we have to get pressure with 4 so that we can and hold up in the box so that we can devote, more resources to covering JJ, to covering whoever. And Ohio State's probably looking at it on the back end going, we need Davison to lock up Andrew Marsh. We need Jermaine to lock up Andrew Marsh. Like, we need our defensive backs to win, because if they can win one-on-one, if they can win with 6 in the box, all of a sudden you are now protecting yourself against the run. You are getting after Underwood. You are confusing him up at the front of the line of scrimmage. Like, I think it's an inverse type of conversation, and which makes sense considering what both of these offenses do well. If Ohio State needs to start devoting resources to saying Bryce Underwood's kind of cooking right now, and we can't just send 7 or 6 every play and try to stop the run and get in Underwood's face, then you might be in a little bit of trouble, because then all of a sudden that run game opens up quickly. All of a sudden Jordan Marshall has an extra hole that he can hit, and all of a sudden it goes from 2nd and 6 to 2nd and 4 and 2nd and 3, and the Michigan game plan gets a lot easier. And it's the same thing for Ohio State. Like I was saying, if Ohio State could throw the ball, Michigan's in trouble. So they're going to have to figure out how we can double Jeremiah and Carnell at the same time. And then guess what? They're probably going to run the ball, and they're going to start to pop off some big hitters in that regard.
Now, the flip side of that is, go ahead, Stefan.
I'm sorry, I'm cracking up at our chat right now. There's an Oregon fan that joined the chat, and it's turned into like Ohio State versus Oregon, and all the points are hilarious because people just being like, Travion Henderson is still running all over Oregon. So,
Chat's active today, and I'm rocking with it.
Yeah.
The flip side of that for me offensively is, everybody close their ears real quick. Just close your ears. Like, physically do it. I need you to physically do it.
Before you do this, I agree with your point earlier about, like, because we're talking about Michigan weaknesses. I don't necessarily think Bryce Underwood is a weakness, because I think he's a good quarterback, but his youth is a weakness, and that's where Ohio State can definitely try to exploit him. Now tell us how Ohio State should run the ball against Michigan.
No. That's not what I'm going to say. What I'm going to say. Young quarterbacks need coaches to have answers for them. And if the coaches don't have answers for him, young quarterbacks will freak out. And that's why Julian Sand is so special, is because it doesn't always feel like he needs somebody to have an answer for him. It feels like he's ready to have the answers. Okay. So Michigan has the 10th best run defense in college football. They're allowing 2.98 yards per carry. Ohio State, by the way, is 4th on that list, 2.67. They're behind Texas Tech, Oklahoma, and Toledo. So they're 3rd amongst Power 4 teams. I think Ohio State can be explosive in the run game against Michigan. That is not saying they should run the ball against Michigan. running the ball against Michigan should be your reward. It's your dessert, not dinner. Eat your carrots first. Go watch the Michigan USC game. I think JJ should get targeted no less than 10 times in the first half. And I'm not being facetious when I say that. I legitimately think they should do that. In fact, I think Max Clare can even have a big game in this game because Michigan's not great at covering tight ends. And if you have a decent receiving tight end, he can be a threat in this game. And if they're going to have Carnell and JJ, they're definitely going to have JJ. I think we're all kind of wait and see on Carnell right now. But if they have both of those guys on the field, then all of a sudden Max Clare is getting your third best cover guy, who's probably a linebacker because he plays tight end, or it's a safety, then all of a sudden Max Clare's a bigger problem that Michigan has to find answers for. And as soon as you start trying to find answers for Max Clare, guess what happens? Number 4-17 is 40 yards down the field, and Julian Sand's not missing. But what I think can happen in this game is what USC did. Buckeye Lemon had 10 targets. He was 9 catches for 93 yards and a touchdown. Like, they established that immediately, Stefan. We were in the car coming back from Illinois watching that game. Buckeye Lemon got going immediately. And that's one of the 3 Biletnikoff Award finalists, along with Jeremiah Smith, as the 2 Power 4 guys who were the other guy's name is escaping me right now. But they established Jade Maeva and Makai Lemon and even Jacoby Lane a little bit first. And then Michigan went into oh no, we can't cover these guys. We got to start diverting resources to these guys, more than like normal resources to these guys. And then all of a sudden, King Miller ran it 18 times for 158 yards. And it was a lot of explosive runs. But that was dessert. They keep trying to make the running game dinner. No. 4 is your dinner. 86 is your dinner. 17 is your dinner. Maybe a little side of number 1, right? Maybe the running backs get involved as well. But if you can establish, we all think Michigan can't cover Ohio State. It is important that Ohio State validate that thought process every single game from here on out because of what it can do going forward. And it's the reason why you take what Ohio State's done with the run game with a grain of salt the last 2 weeks because Rutgers and UCLA couldn't stop us from running the ball. But if they establish what they're elite at first, it opens up the door for what Ryan Day really wants out of the run game. And he just wants guys to pop 40-yard runs every so often. It's that easy, just pop a 40-yard run in a college football game. Everybody's doing it. But that's what it is. Defensively, make Bryce Underwood have to grow up and show you he's ready to do it. Offensively, validate Michigan's fears of your passing game because once you do that, King Miller gets the 160 yards on 18 carries.
Yeah, the USC game plan was perfect. I think so. I'm looking at the stats here. Lemon ended up with 93 yards. 63 of them came in the first half.
Yes.
USC won the rushing battle and won it by a wide margin. But USC in the first half had 181 passing yards to its 61 rushing yards. In the second half, only 84 passing yards, 163 rushing yards. They established the pass. And once they built the lead, they were able to lean on their run game to get explosives and run the clock. So Andrew's smiling because he thinks that Steven's making the point that Ohio State should run 17 times before it attempts a pass.
No.
They should establish a run like their Army or Navy. No, Andrew, that is not what they should do. They should do the inverse. If Ohio State's box score looks anything like USC's from that October game against Michigan, Ohio State has won with ease. Get Julian saying 150 plus passing yards in the first half, and in the second half, you'll let Bo Jackson and Isaiah West and James Peoples and CJ Donaldson put the game away because they're going to be able to break big plays because they're going to have the Michigan defense is going to sell out on the dudes that have been burning them the entire afternoon, and that is in the passing attack. So go ahead, Andrew.
That's all I've been saying the whole time. You just have to be able to run the ball to a degree. Like, you know what's funny about this rivalry? Like, everybody talks about the winner of the rushing battle has won the game. It's like, all right, causation or correlation. Like, there's an interesting debate there. And like, I think people can kind of be aware, hey, the team that's winning probably runs the ball more. Ohio State hung 62 on Michigan 7 years ago, and they won the rushing battle. Wow, hey, good for you guys. You know why they won that game 62-39? Because Dwayne Haskins went 20 of 31 for 396 yards and 6 touchdowns. And they still won the rushing battle because Mike Weber went 13 for 96 with a long of 29. J.K. Dobbins 12 for 46 with a long of 9. That's all you got to do. You can win there's that whole you got to win the rushing battle to win this game. Julian Sagan can throw for 400 yards on Saturday. And Ohio State could still win the rushing battle because you get to a point where you're throwing it all over him, and then Bo Jackson has a carry for 12 yards. And then you throw it to JJ, and then Bo Jackson has a carry for 8. And then you throw it to Carnell for 5, and then Isaiah West goes for 15. Balance can be Ohio State had a 10-play drive and 7 passes, and the run plays just went for 20, 24 yards.
I don't want balance. That's where the disconnect keeps coming in. I don't want balance. I don't. I want you to do what you're good at, because then it will allow you to do the thing that you want to do to close out the football game. That's what I'm. This is not you threw it 3 times and so now you get a chance to run. No. You threw it around for a half. Backed this entire defense off of you. And then you got Bo Jackson to the second level, and then Bo Jackson did the thing you recruited him to do. And you got James Peoples to the second level, and he did the thing you recruited James Peoples to do. You got Isaiah West to the second level, and he did the thing that you recruited Isaiah West to do. Running the ball is a reward in this game. It is not a mandate. It is a reward for doing what you are supposed to do for the whole first half, which ties back into, as we wrap this up, the thing I transitioned us with about Ohio State's quarterbacks needing to take care of the football. Because if you're going to approach it this way, what you can't do is have a turnover in the second quarter that sets up Michigan in prime territory, because then Ryan Day is going to lose trust in you. You remember the Penn State game in 2023, Andrew, when Kyle McCord threw that pick 6 that only got called back because of a defensive holding? And how it fundamentally shifted the Ryan Day.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a hold. It was some defensive penalty that wasn't a really.
Right, but the point of the matter is, Ryan Day is a quarterback guy, and his quarterback just threw a pick in a big game. And it fundamentally changed the way Ryan Day called the rest of that game. Instead of being aggressive with 1 minute and 9 seconds and 3 timeouts at the end of the first half, he took a knee. Will Howard might not have mentally all been there for the entire Michigan game last year.
Generous.
But it doesn't help that he threw picks. And that's a 5th-year quarterback who was a multi-year starter quarterback. And he threw picks. And when you throw picks in big games, coaches stop letting you – they tighten up that leash a little bit, right? This is a road game still, and it's a big game that Ryan Day hasn't won in 4 years. If Julian Sand gets out of character, right, his 3 picks this year, he's got 1 against a Big Ten opponent, and it was they dropped 8 at the 2-yard line, because who drops 8 at the 2-yard line? So he got fooled. He probably just should have thrown it away, but who drops 8 at the 10-yard line? Who does that? Go get the quarterback, Purdue. The other 2 are I got greedy against Grambling, so whatever. And the other one, I think, was Ohio, when Tegra got beat so badly that Julian Sand had no time to throw, and so it just kind of limped out of his arm and it ended up being a pick. So he has 2 real picks. One of them is against a Power 4 opponent, and the other one, he got greedy in the game they were already winning by 40. Right? He hasn't thrown a consequential pick yet. So if he gets out of character and starts doing stuff we've never seen him do, but in a negative way, and it's a road game, and it might snow, and Ryan Day hasn't won this game since 2019, I guarantee you that leash is going to start getting tight. And all of a sudden, they're going to be like, we need to calm this thing down. We're going to run the ball a little bit. So you can't have that. It's a two-way street. Day's got to trust Julian Sand to go be Julian Sand. Julian saying also can't give Ryan Day reasons to start losing trust. And he hasn't done that so far. So that's why I said it would be out of character for him to start throwing picks on Saturday. But listen, man, out of character things happen in those rivalry games all the time.
Well, and you talk about trust too. If you're Ohio State going into this game plan, what do you trust more? Julian saying to not throw a pick or one of your running backs not to fumble? Ohio State's only lost 3 fumbles this year. I'm not saying it's a huge thing, but Ryan Day keeps telling us ball security, ball security, ball security.
Yeah.
I'd be more worried about someone fumbling than Julian throwing a pick based on what we've seen to this point. I will knock on wood for Ohio State fans, but
yeah.
You want to talk about trust? We're talking ball security and trust. Lean on your pass game then, because that's where you've had more ball security.
Day has been like real big on to take care of the football this year, and it's because he got a lot of young guys who have the ball in their hands this year. So I get it, right? Your two best running backs are 2 true freshmen. Your third best running back is a second-year guy who didn't play a lot last year, and your quarterback's a redshirt freshman who played 27 snaps last year. So I get it why you're like that this year. It makes a lot of sense. Somebody in our chat said no running game either. They don't want to see C.J. Donaldson. Listen, man, you're going to see some T.J. Donaldson a lot on Saturday.
That's an Oregon fan saying that Donaldson is not good. So,
I mean, he's good for what they want him to be, and that's their
he's a situational back.
Yeah, he's not their lead back, and so it's fine. Okay, last thing before we give our game scores here. This is the Chris Olave Award. This is marking down an unestablished Buckeye who could use the game to become a star. Andrew, who'd you go with?
Yeah, I went with somebody who will be playing in his first Ohio State-Michigan game, who is not going to be, or has really not been like a focal point of much this year. I think Max Clare could have a really big game, and people could say, hey, remember that guy 5 years ago who was just kind of there on the great receiver teams, and we went, whoa, where did he come from? Mr. 9 for 90 with 2 touchdowns, including the game winner. Like, I think this is the game you have Max Clare for, where if Ryan Day's telling the truth and actually serious about there's a time to open it up and let it rip and all those other things. And if all of that is true, this is when it's going to happen, right? Like, this is when Ohio State is going to stop this. We're just going to play a controlled scrimmage. We're going to get out of here with the, 31-point win, even though we could win by 60, and we're just going to leave. We're going to win and put our backups in the second quarter when it's 14-0. If they're really going to do that, if they're really going to open it up, Max Clare, I think, is going to be a big beneficiary of that, because if you're Michigan, the number one guy that you're trying to stop is Jeremiah Smith. I know there's questions about his health and Carnell Tate's health. They're focused on Carnell Tate too. Like, they're not going to say, well, he hasn't played, so we're just not going to deal with. No. They are preparing for Carnell Tate. They are going to probably act like he is. They're going to definitely act like he's going to play. And I think Max Clare might have a really, really, really big game because of that. I think Ohio State is going to have some weapons underneath. I think if they're going to open it up, and that means 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers, if they're going to let Julian Sand throw it all over the yard, I cannot see a scenario in which Michigan overcommits to Michigan, or Michigan overcommits to JJ or Carnell, and Max Clare doesn't find his way open. Plus, I think that this is just an easy way to ease Julian saying in if you want to do that. Like, if you're saying we're going to throw the ball 5 times on the first 6 plays, like if we want to do something like that, what's really easy? That roll out to the right where Max Clare runs a 5-yard drag or a 5-yard out or a 5-yard flat, or, hey, it's 2nd and 4, Max, run 5 yards, turn around, catch it, and fall down. Like, I think that's an easy way to get Max Clare going. And I think Max Clare is going to be one of those guys in this rivalry game where Michigan just annoyingly goes, man, we didn't think we had to worry about him, and he killed us. So Max Clare.
Yeah. Someone pointed out in the chat how bad Michigan has been at covering tight ends. Go ahead, Stephen. Make your point, but I have a question I need to pose to you guys because I was reminded in the chat. But make your point.
No, that was my point. Like Michigan has been like terrible if you have a tight end with any level of receiving skills, you can take advantage of that against Michigan, which is where I think Max Clare is a very valuable piece to have in this game because he might be the best receiving tight end in college football. I think last week with JJ and Carnell not playing, we got to see what things would look like if he was like a number one option at Ohio State. He's got some wiggle after the catch that we obviously haven't had the opportunity to see this year. And at Purdue, you can only see it but so much. And so he's dangerous for Michigan this year. And obviously Buckeye Ryan pointed out, I stopped at the 30 catches this year. He's gone over that. So I was wrong. Like I said, if I'm wrong, I'll come on this podcast and say I'm wrong. I was wrong. I also was not anticipating Brandon Inniss being this much of a non-factor in terms of touches as a slot receiver. So it wasn't from a place of I didn't think Max Clare was good. It was I hadn't seen this before. And also, when is the last time the slot receiver here didn't get the ball? And the slot receiver doesn't get the ball. They're playing slower. JJ and Carnell missed some games. But also, we live in a world right now where at least in 2025, Ohio State's tight end is on pace to finish with more catches than its slot receiver. Somebody show me the last time in Ohio State history that has been a factual statement. So kudos to Andrew. I was wrong. Kudos to Max Clare. You did it. Now I think you're going to do it on Saturday. Don't start not getting the ball now.
Apologies typically have the phrase "I'm sorry" in them, just as a heads up.
I didn't say I was going to apologize. I said I was going to admit I was wrong.
Yeah.
No, you said you were going to apologize to Andrew. That was the bet.
No, I will say Max Clare. You have to apologize to me and Max Clare.
That's true. In Steven's defense, I don't think we projected a game where Jeremiah and Carnell wouldn't play and Max Clare would get 7 receptions as a result. But the numbers don't lie. Steven, can we get Brendan, can we get last comment? The last comment from Sawyer says, does he have to apologize to him yet? The chat knows it was not kudos to Andrew. It was supposed to be I'm sorry. It wasn't
just like a hat tip. Good job, Andrew. And thank you for the comments on my mother.
I apologize for saying you would not be correct about Max Clare having at least 30 catches through the first 12 games of the season.
Thank you.
Awesome. Buckeye Talk.
Yeah. I'm a man of my word. I didn't remember saying I said I would apologize. So I got reminded of that. It's okay.
That Gillis was right.
Never doubt the chat. Chat's on top of it.
I hold us responsible. Listen, they really do.
Here's the deal. I still didn't believe Gillis. I believed the chat.
That's fine. You said you were going to apologize. You didn't say you were going to believe him.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Stefan, you're up. Who's your guy?
I'm also going the tight end route, and I'm not going the route in the sense of this guy is going to become a star like Chris Olave, right? Because I don't know what the ceiling exactly looks like for Bennett Christian. I went more in like this guy might become a legend because people will remember the 2025 game and say, remember Bennett Christian catching 2 touchdowns in that 2025 game when we ended the losing streak against Michigan? And the reason I picked him is because he's been playing more and more. Now, we have seen the Will Kazmarek thing. He Day was asked Tuesday if that's an injury thing. I think it might seem like more of a load management thing. I don't know. He's played 19 snaps combined over the last 2 games. And Bennett Christian more and more since the Wisconsin game, I think has played at least 19 or 20 snaps every game, right? He's factored into rotation. And he was kind of the guy we joked about in the offseason because he was the only one last year who caught a touchdown from Julian Sayin. It's like, well, keep an eye on Bennett Christian. He's got this chemistry with Julian Sayin. I think Bennett Christian does have some chemistry with Julian Sayin because that touchdown against – who was that against? Was it Penn State? Where Julian's rolling out to his right and Bennett's kind of moving in sync with him. That was an awesome play. Don't be surprised if we walk away from the Michigan game and it's like Bennett Christian has 2 catches for 7 yards and he has 2 touchdowns. And Michigan fans are like, where the hell did this dude come from? Bennett Christian continues to be more and more part of what Ohio State does. Obviously, injuries play into that, right? If Jeremiah and Carnell don't play for some reason, then we're going to see a lot of Bennett Christian. If both those guys play, maybe not as much Bennett Christian. But I'm just open to the idea of like someone on Ohio State's roster kind of coming out of nowhere and making a few impact plays where it's like 4th and goal from the 1 yard line. it's a play action and boom, there's Bennett Christian wide open and Julian Sand hits him. Or third and goal from like the 5-yard line, Bennett Christian, Julian Sand finds Bennett Christian. I'm open to the idea of someone kind of becoming a bit of a Buckeye legend where it's like, I don't know, 10 years from now, is Bennett Christian an all-pro in the NFL? Maybe, maybe not. Is he even an all Big Ten guy over the course of the next couple of years? I don't know. Probably not. Is he a guy that never has to buy a drink again in Columbus, Ohio because he caught 2 touchdowns in Ann Arbor? That's the dream. That's better than being an NFL player. Being a legend in Columbus because of what you did in the game and then maybe becoming a Columbus Aviator tours up, like that's the dream. That's what you dream of as a football player. And Bennett Christian walking out of this game with 2 touchdowns, that dude is going to have a hero's welcome back to Columbus. It'll be one of those. I guess they're going on the bus, not the plane, so they can't necessarily do like the fire truck shooting water over the plane. Yeah. But some kind of ceremony awaits Bennett Christian when he comes back to Columbus because he is going to be remembered forever if he has one of those kind of where did he come from performances. Maybe he throws a touchdown. We get a little Philly special going on. Julian, there's so much chemistry between Julian and Bennett Christian that Julian catches a touchdown from Bennett Christian. I don't know. I'm getting into outrageous prediction territory instead of live pod territory, but I'm just open to the idea of Bennett Christian, like he's gonna be on like a podcast in 10 years, being like, "You remember your game against Michigan in 2025?" And he's gonna be like, "Yeah, every time I walk into a bar in Columbus, I'm reminded of it."
Mark it down, 12:22 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesday, November 26th. We have mentioned Bennett Christian throwing a touchdown pass against Michigan.
I thought this was an intriguing pick, and then you went towards that. I said, "Oh, this is an emotional pick." He's scouting. Yeah, he's scouting.
Stefan is the biggest Columbus Aviators fan of all time. Maybe him and Bill Landis, and they have not played a snap yet.
No, I'm not going to allow you to say 2 people who are not from Columbus are the biggest fans of the Aviators. I'm just not going to allow you to do that. You guys are implants here, transplants here. It's real Columbusers on this podcast. So before Brennan puts mine up on the screen, I thought about Edric finally clicking. Arvell's too much of a star.
Yeah.
So can't do Arvell, unfortunately. Thought about Jalen McClain. Thought about Devin Sanchez because I'm going to be driving that bus until the day he leaves. And I thought about Brandon Ennis, honestly, like finally having his moment. But I'm going to use a similar logic that we used before the Texas game when talking about Arvell Reese and how we were saying, hey, man, like I get it. Anthony Hill's really good. I get it. City Styles really good, but we might be leaving this game. And Arvell Reese is who everybody thinks is the best linebacker from that game. And we've seen how that's played out since. And Arvell Reese, I joked with him after the game on Saturday. I was like, hey, man, take it all in. This is your last time playing here. And he laughed because he knows, even if he can't say it publicly yet. He knows. He knows I'm not lying to him. Bo Jackson is the number what running back in the Big Ten right now?
He's definitely top 5.
Yeah.
Do we know that?
Darius Taylor being hurt obviously affects it probably a little bit, but
okay.
Justice Haynes being hurt probably too.
Yeah, but he's at least been healthy enough this year to where we can say he's probably been the best.
If everybody's healthy, but we can say if everybody's healthy because like he is a top what if every running back in the Big Ten is healthy right now.
I'd probably still stick with top 5. But I will admit that comes from a place of like I watch him and I would understand why the average college football fan wouldn't. And I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
We're cleveland.com. So we're not just like hyping up Arvell and Bo because they're Cleveland guys. It's because they're good and they're Cleveland guys. That's why we're hyping them up. Right now, Bo Jackson is 5th in the Big Ten in rushing yards per game. Emmett Johnson at Nebraska is number 1. He averages 112 yards per game. He also touches it 20 times a game. Yeah. Katron Allen, who is now Penn State's all-time leader in rushing yards. Kudos to him. Like it's good to see. Like something positive came out of that year, right? But he's averaging 97 yards per game, and he gets it 17 times. Antoine Wayman at Rutgers, who like was 1,000-yard back coming into the game last weekend, and Ohio State just didn't let Rutgers do anything. He only had 52 yards last week. He averages 95 yards per game, and he gets it 19 times. And to be fair, that was probably above 100 until last week. So like take that into account of Emmett Johnson is so much higher than Katron Allen and Antoine Raymond because he hasn't had to play Ohio State in the other two halves. Jordan Marshall is the other guy in the top 5 who has not played Ohio State yet. He's averaging 87 yards per carry, and he gets the ball 14 times. And that has gone up since Justice Haynes' injury, obviously. Justice Haynes was in this mix too before he got hurt. The number 5 is Bo. 83.5 yards per game, but he only gets the ball 12.9 times per game and in rushing. So the other 3 guys he's in a conversation with all are getting the ball 14 plus times, and then there's him. Because they've done a good job of, they didn't play him against Texas because he's a true freshman. And then they have just done a good job, as much as it's maybe made us pull our hair out sometimes. Carlos Lachlan has figured out how to have 4 running backs all have a role. I think they're done with that. I think Bo Jackson's about to start getting the ball a lot. He got it 19 times against Rutgers, and I don't think that was for no reason. I think Carlos has been game by game by game by game by game getting Bo up there to where it's like, all right, Bo, you ready to carry it 20 times against Michigan? And it's why Ryan Day's been pushing to take care of the ball. One, because it's just what he does. But also, you can't give a true freshman the ball 20 times if you're worried about him fumbling it. Right? Which is why I think it was good that he fumbled against Rutgers and they put him back out there. Right? Because if you bench him, you lose him. You lose him psychologically. But if you give him another opportunity, he knows you believe in him, and he ended up having the game he had. I think Bo is where Arvell Reese was coming into the season right now, where we know about Bo. People who live in the Ohio State bubble know about Bo, and they know that every time this game is on Fox, Gus Johnson is going to bring up the fact that his name is Bo Jackson and his real name is Lamar. So get ready to hear that for the next 2 weeks if Ohio State takes care of business. That at some point, Gus Johnson is going to remind Joe Klatt, as if we haven't been talking about it for 4 months, that his name is Lamar Bo Jackson. Isn't that crazy? He's named after 2 legends. New talking points, man. Talk about the football game. And let the crowd noise in. That's the thing I hate about Fox. Is ESPN and NBC, they let you feel the crowd. They mute the crowd on Fox, and so it just kind of takes away from the environment of college football. I get why you do it in the NFL. This is college football. Let me hear the people.
Yeah, you're right. And as we're doing this, Day is doing his radio show, and he actually, I'm reading a tweet from Patrick Murphy from 247. Ryan Day talked about Bo Jackson. He said the challenge to Jackson was to make guys miss the last few weeks, and he's done that, right? So they're obviously challenging Bo Jackson with more and more. And Day did say emphasis on protecting the ball. So is Ryan Day allowed to talk about Bo Jackson without emphasizing protecting the football?
If you are not legally allowed to buy a beer, he's going to talk about how you need to take care of the football. I think there is a world that exists where Ohio State might walk into the 2026 season with the best quarterback, best running back, and best wide receiver in college football. It can't happen this year because there's a kid up in South Bend who's just running all over everybody and probably running his way to New York City. But I think that starts on Saturday, where Arvell is no longer ours. He belongs to everybody. He belongs to college football. He belongs to the scouts. I think the NFL scouts like drool over him every Sunday. I think Bo Jackson is no longer going to just be ours after Saturday. And it's because if they approach this game like USC did, that means Bo Jackson's going to be running for 40-yard touchdowns in the second half kind of as a backbreaker in this game. So he's bubbling. And on Saturday, it's like Bo Jackson coming out party, like for sure in this type of a game. And I mean, we'll be happy. We're cleveland.com. That just means 2 Cleveland guys are awesome. That's great for us. All right, let's get these game scores. Let's do this. These are our records on the year. We also put this up on the site, cleveland.com/OSU. For the record, we start the year out with 100 Buckeye Talk tokens, and we bet them because we can't bet real money. We bet them on the winner of the game, the spread, and the over-under. As you can see, Stefan and I are undefeated. Andrew picked Texas to win in week 1, so that's why he's not undefeated, or it would be. Most years, we're going to be undefeated because Ohio State doesn't do a lot of losing here. I am awesome against the spread. Stefan is awesome against the spread. Andrew's okay against the spread. And they were all just abysmal against the over-under. Maybe that idea of Ohio State always covers, but then take the under doesn't always seem to work.
No,
in all of these situations.
It started to fail.
And you'll see what my prediction goes.
It's the reason why it's failed is because at the end of the game, the backups give up a random touchdown. And we're just like, what are you doing, man? Cover. Make the tackle. Let's do this. I don't know who's up first, Brennan. So I'm going to let you take this. Oh, we're all up there. Hey, wait. Okay.
Right.
Am I Lee Corso in this situation?
I think you
might. It is. Wait, did you make Gillis Nick Saban?
You're damn right he did.
All right. Well,
yeah, go tell Nick Saban you don't need to run the ball ever. You should just run 30 passes and 0 runs. See how he reacts.
I'm fine. I'm fine with the McAfee role, I guess. Colts punter. I grew up in Indiana. I could take the McAfee stuff, I guess. I'm not going to take my shirt off, though. I promise you that.
Gillis, he reacted to that by going and getting NFL quarterbacks and benching Jalen Hurts at halftime because he needed to throw the football. At the time that we sent these in the Brennan, Ohio State was favored by 10 points with an over-under of 44.5. I don't know if that's moved at all since we've done that. So, but this is what we're working off of. Ohio State favored by 10 and a 44.5 over-under. Stefan, what is your game score?
Yeah, I spent all summer talking about how I'm not picking Ohio State to beat Michigan until proven otherwise.
Same.
I'm picking Ohio State to beat Michigan, and I'm taking the final score 24-10. And I thought about maybe tossing in. I was going to maybe go 31-10. Does Ohio State throw in one more touchdown to kind of, really deliver that last blow? But I think this is going to be a game where Ohio State jumps out early. And as much as I think Ryan Day would love to just keep airing it out and run up the score, I think maybe we see a little bit of a Washington trend in this where Ohio State's comfortable, don't make mistakes, your defense is awesome, just keep your, arm's length away from Michigan, 2-score lead kind of comfortably throughout. So I think we could see Ohio State jump ahead 10-0, 14-0, something like that, and kind of cruise from there. So I'm taking Ohio State 24-10. I'm taking Ohio State to cover, and I'm taking the under. I've trusted it all season. As much as I say I trust it, the numbers continuously show me that maybe I shouldn't trust it because they're giving up, guard. And I thought, maybe this is the game where I go over, finally do the over. But I did 24-10. I'm 10 points under. Like I have to stick with the under. I'm way under the total here. Even if I throw in another touchdown, 31-10, I'm still a field goal under. So I'm sticking with the under here. But Ohio State 24-10. I think Ohio State knows when it's comfortable, when it's got the lead, when it's a good spot, and you can trust that defense to do what it does. I think they're going to do that. Open to the idea of 31-10, but when you've lost 4 in a row, I can't give you that extra touchdown. Prove it to me. Next year, I'll give you the extra touchdown if you win the game. So not taking my shirt off. I'm not doing full McAfee, but I will do the McAfee thing where I know the crowd, the theoretical crowd here, is Ohio State fans listening to us. So I guess I'm playing to the crowd. Ohio State 24, Michigan 10. The streak ends. The streak ends on Saturday.
I'm just enamored by the different level of bins on all of our bills, on our hats. It's fascinating. It's insane. It's just like we're all different people. All right, Gillis, what's your game score? I think Gillis is up next.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Brendan said I'm correct.
Yeah. So when Ohio State won the national championship game last year, I'm going to do a little lead in like Stefan did. When Ohio State won the national championship last year, I said they were going to beat Michigan and that this was going to be the year. Now, granted, I had picked Ohio State to beat Michigan. I think it was like 20, whatever I picked, it was close in 23. And then last year I picked 36-10. So I was way off. And I said all along, I remember I was talking about this with our columnist, Jimmy Watkins. I said, these people are going to come around, man. because Michigan's not going to look great or Ohio State's going to look really good. And all these people are going to show up and they're going to join me. And then we got to the game week and I went, oh man, this is a bigger mental hurdle than I thought. And I had a lot of struggle with it. Ohio State 24, Michigan 9. Ohio State beats Michigan. I laughed when Stefan said 24-10 because I went, you got to be kidding me that he picked 24-10. I don't think Michigan scores a touchdown. I think they get a couple field goals here. But hey, if they score a touchdown and like go for 2 and miss it or something and kick a field goal, I'll take the win if they get 9. I think that national championship run fundamentally changed their mental, emotional block that happened here. And like Sawyer in our chat said, they'll run up the score. I don't know if you'll be in a position to do that. I don't know if you'll be able to do that. But, I mean, if you can, they will. But I think so much of this team in the last handful of years was just, hey, Michigan just hit them over the head time and time again in 21. And then it becomes a thing of just, hey, the physicality, hey, third base, hey, they're in your head. Hey, it's now a mental block. Hey, they've got you mentally. They've got you between the ears. And I don't think that was changing unless Ohio State won a national championship, and they did. And Ohio State now is able to say, we don't need to be as afraid of this game as we have been. Julian Sands making his first start in the game, and we could talk about all these guys playing in the game and how big it is. And, oh, no, you don't know what it's like until you really step foot into the arena. Okay. Well, Julian Sands, why should 2021's loss impact Julian Sands? He was in high school for that. He was barely in high school for that. Like, Bo Jackson? I don't think Bo Jackson, if I do my math, I think Bo Jackson was in 8th grade for that game. Why should Bo Jackson care? Why? Why should Arvo Reese care that, oh, they couldn't get the job done in 23 or 24? He wasn't on the field. So is there a mental block that you still need to get through a little bit? But I think the national championship run gave this team confidence, got this team out of whatever funk they would have been in against Michigan. Ohio State breaks the streak. They go to Ann Arbor, they win the game, and they go to the Big Ten championship game at 12-0.
So this is the 4th time Ohio State has been 11-0 heading into this game since Ryan Day took over. They were 11-0 in 2019, and they won it. They were 11-0 in 2022, and they lost it, and they were 11-0 in 2023, and they lost it. So this is going to be the 4th time Ryan Day has a chance to be 12-0 to close out the season. They probably would have been 12-0 to close out the season in 2020, though. I don't know. Like, the Oregon game was intriguing back then because it was at Oregon. Had the season been normal, but given the way things kind of played out for all these teams, maybe Ohio State would have been 12-0 at the end of 2020 as well. I think that moment has passed in terms of Ohio State running up the score and kind of getting its lick back for some of the things that have been said and done over the last 4 years. I just think the anticipation of it in 2022, and it's like, oh, they might win, and now Ryan Day might get up there and like be able to say some things about Jim Harbaugh. Like, he didn't win it, so he couldn't do it then. And then in 2023, the Connor Stallions things happened. So if they had pulled that one off, I think it would have been interesting to see what he had to say, especially since he kind of hinted at it after the Notre Dame game of like how he was feeling that year, but then they lost, so you can't do it. And then like the way he handled winning a national championship last year, like that was his moment to stick it to everybody who had kind of lost faith in him, which includes us in the media, right? I think we had all kind of, in some ways, informed. We're kind of out on what was happening and needed to see some things change. Not necessarily saying that he needed to be fired, but he needed to start winning some important games. And he won some important games. But he kind of took the introspective route and just kind of, yeah, man, I've been through a lot, but having this trophy made it all worth it. And then he locked back in, and now they're trying to go get it again. I think if Ohio State wins on Saturday, I think we're all going to be wondering if he's going to get up there at the podium and start like popping off at the mouth. I just don't think he's going to do that. I don't think he's going to do the whole Woody, hey, why'd you go for 2? Because I couldn't go for 3, even though I've never actually. I just don't think he's going to do any of that at this point. Because, again, there's a bigger picture to this. He wants to win this game more than anybody else, given some of the, like, seriously. Like, it got a little rough there last year. But there's also life after this. So if they win, they'll celebrate it, and they'll spend a couple of days, like, living in it. But more than likely, they're going to have to lock back in, and it's going to be a number 1, number 2 matchup 7 days from now. So can he really afford to run up the score? Because then you're also putting your players at risk. And your 2 best players are not 100% healthy already. So you're going to try to run up the score and do something you don't need to do? So my score is 31-13. And that's not running up the score. I just think they might score 31 points because they're going to have to score 31 points in this game. And if they don't score 31 points in this game, I'm going to be like, okay, what happened? Why did you only score 24? Because you can explain why they only scored 14 against Texas, because they only felt like they needed to do that. You can explain why they only scored 24 against Washington, because that's all they really needed to do. But in this game where you're supposed to put it all together, I think if they're under 30, I'm going to be a little confused on why it was. I think some things went wrong for them. Maybe they turned the ball over, or they didn't capitalize in the red zone the way they needed to be. And I did give Michigan a touchdown, but other than that, I gave them some field goals. I'm with you, Stefan. I think in the preseason, you and I predicted them to go 11-1 and lose this game.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's here, and neither one of us are doing it. And I think both of the reason why neither one of us is doing it is because it's like, just don't overthink it. And if they approach it with that mindset of just don't overthink it, man, just go win the football game, then I think 31-13. I think if they start trying to push it and try to win 45-6 because they're like clearly trying to prove something, that's when you run into trouble, and all of a sudden you're losing 13-10. So just don't overthink it. I think they're the better football team. I think them winning a national championship last year got a monkey off of everybody's back, and so now they're not trying to prove stuff. I think the way they've been handling it this week, where they're not making it a thing, it's a thing, but it's a football game at the end of the day. It's probably going to do them some good. So I think they just win this game the same way they've won the last 11, in the most professional manner possible. 31-13. As you can see, I have 20 Buckeye Talk tokens on the cover because, again, I'm 10-1 against the spread.
Hey, how about this? There's a lot of people in the chat who want Ohio State to just kick Michigan's ass. Producer Brennan, who's an Ohio State fan, he predicts Ohio State 77, Michigan nothing.
I don't know, man. Like, I mean, if they do it, they do it. But I don't know. You got to play a top 2 matchup next week if you win this game. So I think there's a way to win this game, prove your point, and not put yourself in harm's way. Last thing before we get out of here. I do not think Ohio State's going to plant a flag on Saturday or try to plant a flag because, again, win the game, get out of here. But
I disagree.
But if someone were to plant a flag, who would be your flag planter, Andrew?
Jermaine Matthews.
Jermaine
Next.
Matthews.
Yeah, Jermaine Matthews immediately.
I wonder if Jermaine understands that people think of him like this. I would say
it wouldn't shock me if it was like, I'll say a cornerback. How about that? A cornerback, because I wouldn't be surprised if Davison did it.
I think Jermaine or Davison's got to be up there. I also don't want to discount like somebody that we're not expecting, but like you see it after the fact and you're like, you know what, that makes sense that he would hate Michigan that much. Like if Luke Montgomery did it, I don't know if we're going to be sitting around being like, wow, that's crazy. I think we're going to be like, actually, that makes some sense that Luke Montgomery would do that.
I just think it's funny because Davison did get a pick and hop up on the stands and give the ball to his family. So, I mean,
and then he had to run back out on the field because it was overturned.
Yeah, but if he's willing to hop up in the field, hop up in the stands and give somebody a ball after a pick, then he's definitely willing to plant a flag. Melissa said they should invite Jack Sawyer back.
What if the answer is Ryan Day?
Don't step on my answer, man. Don't step on it like that. I was literally setting that up. Buckeye Ryan said Malik Hartford. Malik Hartford, by the way, has been in a robot arm for the past month and a half. So that's also why he's been taking a red shirt. Let's just paint a picture. The snow's starting to come down just as Julian Sand's knee hits the dirt for the final time. It's a poetic visual of where we were 5 years ago when this all started in 2021, when the snow started falling as Michigan finally broke through in 1-1. And it just felt like a new day in Ann Arbor. You could see the look on Ryan Day's face. He was shell-shocked, not really sure what had just happened. He goes and he shakes Jim Harbaugh's hand and he heads off to the locker room. He's in pain. And as the snow starts to fall on November 29th, 2025, he remembers that image of where he was the last time it snowed in Ann Arbor. He heads out to shake Sharon Moore's hand, looks him in the eye. Good game. And then he looks out to his right and he sees Jeremiah Smith celebrating his birthday by picking up a flag. He sees JJ running towards him because they're in the block M. And he knows what JJ is about to do. And he doesn't get Quinn Temple to go get him. He doesn't get CJ Barnett to go get him. No, he goes and he handles it himself. He grabs that flag from Jeremiah and says, no, we don't do that. We're the bigger people. Get to the locker room now. Give me the flag. And just as JJ thinks he's being scolded, he sees his coach run back towards the M. Flag. Blocko flag. No, not Blocko flag. The flag. His hand. Tears in his eyes. It's turf so it doesn't stick. But it pops back up. And then he does it again and again and again. And all that emotion of years of turmoil and torment. And he screams out loud, I wasn't born on third base. No, you, Sharon, were born on third base. I'll see you in Indianapolis next week. And then he just hops on the plane. No presser. I know I just lost my mic, but no presser. Just straight to the plane. Gets back to Columbus and gets to work for Signetti. But first, he pulls away Jerry Taft. He pulls away the mic and he looks into the camera and goes, Kurt, I'm coming for you next week.
You thought there was a fight last year.
350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. Ohio State, Michigan on Saturday. That's your game preview pod. Rants pod coming into your feeds on Friday. A lot of emotion in those rants. This was fun. Thanks to the chat. You guys were active. You guys are funny. But just think about that visual as it starts to snow on Saturday. As you start celebrating with your friends, you think to yourself, no, find Ryan Day and find JJ. They might be fighting over a flag. For Stefan, for Gillis, for producer Brennan, I'm Stephen. Talk to you guys later.